Hi guys, my name is Steve Martinez, otherwise known as SignStamp Steve, and this is my channel. I'm the founder and owner of SignStampDeliver LLC Mortgage Document Closings and Solutions Group, as well as MyCreditOasis, which is a new development. And I have been MIA for the last 5 months. And in this video, I'm going to tell you exactly why that is, and I have a lot to share with you that has happened in this last 5 months that I hope can help you in your own business venture as a notary and really anything that you set out to do. So I hope that you guys stick along. I have a lot to drop, so I hope you're ready, and let's get to it. Okay guys, so like I said, we have a lot to cover today. So what I'm going to do is we're going to break it down into a couple sections. So on our itinerary for today, in today's video, we're going to cover what has happened in the last 5 months. So from January all the way to June. At the time of release of this video is going to be June 14th, which was exactly 5 months after my last video, which was January 14th. So there's been a lot that's happened. I actually want to break down each month for you. What were the successes? What happened? How did I achieve that? What happened to April, which really was the worst month of 2021, why I think that was, and what it is kind of led to now that we're in June. So it's been quite a process. It's actually been extremely hard. But I hope that through my mistakes or any of the lessons I've learned, you're encouraged, you're able to use that and apply it to yourself in your own context, whatever business you're in. I'm excited, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna pan over to my computer, and I'm gonna break down my notary gadget from you month to month, explain what has happened through each month, and where I am today. Okay, everyone. So as you can see, we are now in my computer, where we're taking a look at my notary gadget for 2021. As you can see, overall, I had 99 signings, which is pretty good for the first couple of months. Not as good as I wanted it to be, especially with May. Absolutely no signings. Whoa. I made almost $10,000 in signings with $8,398 as profit. My average signing being at $85. So as we kind of look at this overview here, I want to give you guys a breakdown for January. So January was the first month of me becoming a full-time self-employed notary signing agent. I was so excited. I was hustling, accepting every signing I could, because one of the big things that me and my wife agreed on was that the signings would be there, and they would be there very consistently. And I would say they were. So January, I ended up with 31 signings. Let's take a look at the numbers here. I ended up with 2.6K, so $2,600. And I thought that was very good for my first month. So I came out of a full-time employment. When I put in my 2 weeks, I was making somewhere around 25. I was making about 12.50. No, I was actually making a little bit more. I think I was at like 26.50. So to end up a little bit short of what I was making at a full-time job, doing this full-time, but technically, you only work like 24 to 30 hours. So a lot less of a time than you would at a full-time company. Was exciting. So I was hustling. I was excited. I mean, I was blasting emails out because, again, I quickly found out that I was not able to face-to-face market. I wasn't able to go into escrow offices and introduce myself. Everything was shut down, and no one was getting in through those doors. And I found that out so quickly. It was actually a rude awakening, to be honest, and it's something I'll talk about a little bit later. I was blasting emails. I was hitting the social media. I was posting videos like the last two I posted in January. And it was just a good time, right? I was following up every 2 weeks. And January ended up pretty good for my first month, the 2.6K. Then came February, had significantly less signings, but made more because I started declining some of the offers or asking for a raise. And what I mean by that is someone would offer $75 and I said I wanted 100 or 125. And some signings are just not worth $100. Like, you really have to push for asking for higher fees. And that was actually my last video in January 14th, was understanding your worth, understanding that you're worth more than you think. And, knowing your penny, knowing your cost, knowing what you should charge. So check that out. I'll have it linked below.
As we get into March, I think March was the best month that I had. So again, went from 2.6 to 2.5. So it was a little bit lower. I was still optimistic. And then came March, and March was fantastic. March was the first time that I had onboarded my direct escrow client. So I had been working with a loan officer since October, no, maybe September of last year. And it took for me to follow up every 2 weeks for 6 months or so to onboard this client. And finally came time, March, I was getting $175 per signing and just absolutely doing an awesome time. I did take a lot of HELOCs that were like $75 a piece. So 31 signings was matched with the other one, but obviously significantly more income because of the direct signings. So March was just exciting. I was stoked. I onboarded my first direct client after, 6 to 8 months of follow-ups and emails and phone calls and, hey, I'm still here and I still want your business and I know that I have a lot to offer you. And I was working hard. I mean, I was improving my process. I generated reports. It was a great month. I was so on fire and I was so excited and I was just so encouraged by the way that my income was increasing seemingly month by month. And then came April. April was an absolutely terrible month, and I really still can't put my finger on why that was. If you guys are in the industry and you know Coast to Coast, I actually enjoyed Coast to Coast and became one of their preferred signing agents. I was making that they were actually probably about 50% of my business month to month. And for some reason, I have no idea what happened. I had always maintained a great relationship, always followed up, always called, always submitted everything on time. And one day, I just stopped receiving notifications from Coast to Coast. I have never been so confused in my life. Not only that, that direct client that was able to give me 5, 6, 7 signings direct, for $175 to $200 a piece, dropped off. I didn't hear from them for all of April. I didn't hear from them for all of May too, which is, I mean, I would have loved to have taken signings in May. I was really still dealing with a lot. But I didn't get anything. Like I really didn't get any signings. So April, I really can't put my thumb on it, but the majority of my business that came from one signing agency completely dropped off, and I'm getting signings through them from another signing platform now, which is super interesting. But April was a terrible month. Not only did I not make a lot of money, which again for me is so important because I am a dad. I'm a father of twin boys. I'm a husband to my beautiful wife. We have a place in Southern California. Like, it's expensive to live here. And so to make only 1.3K was so terrible and so heart-wrenching. And, I had a really terrible month, and I was just really going through the ringer of like my mental health, and I wasn't really opening up to anybody. And it was just such a hard time. Not only did that happen in April, I totaled our new car in April as well. So we had gotten a new car. It's a Volkswagen Tiguan 2021 after my car broke down in March. It was a totally different story. I actually might put a separate video out about the worst. I might title it, How I Lost My First Escrow Client. So my Xterra broke down in March. I got a new car in April, brand new. And we loved the car. It was so beautiful. And I had a terrible experience after ministry where my dog was choking in the back seat. I reached back to try and unlodge him from where he was stuck in the car. And in the moment that I turned around to unlodge him, I went through a tree. And I went through a street pole and completely totaled the car. And it was I couldn't go to bed because whenever I closed my eyes, I would just vision me in front, like plastering through a tree. And April was just so hard on me mentally, so hard on me physically. I didn't take care of myself. I was just going through it. Life happens. Like, life unexpectedly can take a turn for the worst. Not to say that I'm in the worst position or that I am in a worse position than anybody else, even for that matter. But April was so hard. Only made 1.3K, only did 11 signings. I mean, it was terrible. And as a repercussion of thinking that I was untouchable, and then suddenly life knocks me on my, for lack of a better word, my arse, my ass. I went spiraled downhill into like a really low place mentally. I was second guessing myself as a notary. I was second guessing myself as a business. I thought about dissolving my business, and everybody knows that come April, you have an $800 franchise tax board fee as a LLC. So April came along, terrible month, super depressed, had a big, really tough time. And I did not do any signings in May, absolutely no signings. I couldn't do it. I wanted to. And if I could, I would have done at least my direct, but nothing came through. I even silenced my notifications, and I was ready to give up on the notary public work. I started looking at other industries like the pool industry. My friend was able to give me a lot of work, which covered my butt for finances, for pool work. He has his own company, owns 50 pools. By the way, that's a great industry, absolutely fantastic industry. And I would recommend it, anybody looking at it, to diversify your profile and your streams of income. So I looked into that industry. I learned that industry. I kind of got back to my roots before I launched my notary public business at looking at credit repair, which is something I'm actually really excited about and want to share with you guys. But all to say is that what seemingly was going up for me monetarily suddenly came to a crashing burn in these last 2 months. And here we are in June, where I have one signing from my direct client who had just contacted me. It's actually this upcoming Monday as of recording. It's Friday. So, it just, you look at this and you look at how much I've made, you look at really the up and down of the scale here. And all I pictured in my mind was the up and up and up. And, this really sobered me, and it gave me a lot of things to look back on. It gave me a lot of lessons that I needed to learn the hard way. So I do, as hard as it was, and as depressing as it was, and as hard as it took a mental toll on my mind, I needed this to happen. And, it's always when things like this happen, when you make only $1,000 living in California and no dollars for signings in your business, living in California, that you really have to take a step back. You have to look at the broader picture, and you have to look at yourself honestly and say, is this working? Is this not? Do I continue this? Do I get a part-time job? Do I get a full-time job for the meantime? Like, you have to ask yourself some harder questions. And that is what happened to me. That was my month's overview. Please ignore this. I'm going to fix that. This was all a repercussion of May and April, where I just kind of dropped off, didn't really look at Notary Gadget at all. But anyways, it was a tough time, really tough time. We've still got 99 signings in for this year, half of this year, which means that I can easily replicate it for the next half. But yeah, so this is kind of an overview of months, January to June. And now what I want to do is bring us back over to the video and just kind of tell you guys what I've learned, what I hope to share with you, and where the future of SignStampDeliver lies ahead. So stay tuned.
Okay, so now that we've gotten an overview from January to current date June, mid-June, I want to go over some takeaways that I've learned from this experience for anybody who's a notary that you might be able to learn from. I'm also going to have some tips specifically for you as well. But really anybody who's in, again, any industry who's looking to be self-employed. When I started this channel, I set out to be vulnerable. It's something that has been extremely difficult for me. I've never liked it, right? It wasn't until about 2 years ago that I learned to be vulnerable. And that was because I went through a really big mental health crisis. I was suicidal. I was depressed. I just felt like no one was there for me. I was alone. And so I've made it my mission to just be vulnerable, because I know a lot of us are kind of in that place. I mean, depression is spiking, especially during COVID. So I want to be, if I have to be, the person who is, for lack of a better term, stake to the cross, to just kind of put myself out there and say, like, if I need to be the one who has to be humiliated, or if I have to be the one that has to be the one to show people and awaken people, like, I'll do it, So mental health is a big thing, and it was rough. So I want to be vulnerable. I want to show you guys. I want to just let you guys know that it's not all so perfect. It's not always the best. Sometimes it's really hard, especially starting a business. In fact, I was listening to a podcast recently, and I'm kind of rambling at this point, but I heard a podcast, and it was an individual who had, he's a consultant. He was like a Fortune 500 consultant. I forgot what his name is, but I listen to his podcast like every day. It's an entrepreneurial personality type podcast. But he was on the podcast, and he was saying something along the lines of, he had this individual who had cancer. I think he had spinal cancer and ended up overcoming it. But he asked this individual what was harder, going through the spinal cancer and going through chemotherapy and all of the radiation, process, or the business. And the person looked at him dead in the eyes, and he honestly said to him, he said, starting a business was the hardest thing that I could have ever done. So I look at that in perspective, and I say, wow, yes, this is really hard, and I relate to this person, and so you guys must be relating to me and this individual as well. It is not easy, and we have to be out there for each other. And so that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. That's why I like to be the scapegoat, to be the person out there, to be the whistleblower per se. I want to be the guy who's hopefully encouraging you guys. With all that being said, these are my takeaways. So the first takeaway for me in this whole process from the last 6 months, these hard 6 months, was that I should have realized how difficult marketing would have been in the current state that we were in. And so what I mean by that is, in the loan signing system, which is a great course, I absolutely recommend it. There is kind of the idea, or the course teaches you to door knock, right? To go up to the escrow officer's facility, to pitch your name, to give them some coffee and some Starbucks card, to just be, a blessing to them. I mean, there's a great proverb that says a gift opens the door to many pathways. So, there is opportunities where there is gifts. It's a great idea. In fact, it's awesome. You should completely do it. But with the shutdown, I didn't realize how many people were remote, how many offices actually weren't letting not only their clients in, but any notaries. So the escrow officers were working remote. So that almost eliminates. So when I hit the market, it almost eliminated any chance that I had to meet someone face to face, to introduce myself, to dress nice, right? Get my suit going. To give them gifts that open doors. I just couldn't do that. So I resorted to email campaigning and phone calls, and that just is so hard. And you really have to, I've done sales for a long time. You have to have a specific personality type. You have to have the grit to get on the phones every day, 4 hours, 5 hours a day, to try and get these clients. I didn't realize when I hit the market, when I became self-employed in January, how difficult it would actually be to attain not only an escrow company, loan officers, real estate agents, and in total. So that was one of my biggest takeaways. Marketing is completely different in a pandemic, right? It should have been easy enough to know, but I completely missed that. So the second takeaway for me is that I should have realized that life happens, It was April. I think it was March when my Xterra broke down, and it left me carless, and I had brought on a new escrow client, and I was so stoked about it, and their fees were a minimum of $200, and it was awesome, right? And I went through this whole venture, and the car broke down, and I had a buddy pick me up to take me to that first signing, because you got to do whatever you got to do to get that signing, right? So I called my buddy, who was also one of my prospecting partners, and I said, hey, this could mean everything to us. If we go and make this signing, we need to hop in the car, and we need to drive all the way to Riverside County, which was 2 hours away, and we need to do this signing for them. Because if we don't do the signing for them and I cancel out we could lose this client. And so we went, and like I explained, the car broke down, his tire popped, we couldn't make the signing, and I lost that client. And so stuff like this just happens. You feel like life is pitted against you. And, I still convince myself that that's the case sometimes, but life just happens, and life is hard, and cars break down, and tools break, and all of that good stuff, right? Life just happens, and it's important for us to realize that life happens, and you want to be sensitive to that. You don't want to bank and think you're untouchable, and then when you're touched, when you lose, right? And that's kind of like the thing. There's like famous boxers and all of these artists and stuff who are just untouchable. When they get beat the first time, they're depressed. They even come back, and they come back for their follow-up fight, and they're scared to get hit because they've never gotten hit like that before. Like, there's just a lot to it. So I love the mentality of thinking you're untouchable. Heck, sometimes I think I'm untouchable, but I do have to realize that life happens, and there's just some things I can't control. So the second takeaway for me was that I should have realized how important it was to have backup equipment. So I've been a notary for 2 years. I've had the stain stamp for 2 years. I've been going ham with, that stamp has been through the ringer. I've done over 300 signings with that stamp, in a combination of last year, which was my biggest year, and this year, which wasn't the best year. But I didn't have a second stamp. The stamp broke. And I wasn't really able to use it. I contacted the Secretary of State. I had moved addresses, so I had to update my address first, which was a process of 6 weeks. And then the letter to manufacturer costs money, and they have to send it to me, which processes a couple weeks. And then I have to send the manufacturer letter to, someone like the NNA who can process a stamp for me, and that takes a couple weeks. Like, when the stamp broke, it was really just like a horrendous situation to be in, because I've lost all my source of business, right? If my stamp breaks, it means I can't do signings. I can't be there for my escrow clients when they need me to be. But just to say that whatever you're basing your operation on, if you have a phone system, if you have, a computer, if you have a stamp, like whatever it is that you run your operations on, you need to have backup plans. So the last thing, as we kind of wrap this up, is kind of personally for me to tell you guys and always look back on. And at this current state, right, the release of this video, June 14th, what does the future hold for SignStampDeliver LLC? And right now, that question lingers in my mind every single day as I kind of look to getting a part-time job, maybe even a full-time job, starting a new industry. But here's what I do know. And it's that I am a notary public at heart. I have specialized in this industry. I've done it for the last 2 years. I've completed over 250 plus to 300 signings. I know this industry like the back of my heart. And I know that SignStampDeliver, while it's a great name and it's a great business, even if I dissolved it, even if I got rid of SignStampDeliver and started a new notary company, being a notary public will always be a part of who I am. It's always going to be a great source of additional income. And I also want to tell you that if you're a notary public and you're seeing that, you can have a bad month and, maybe not have any signings at all, which I think is kind of impossible. I chose not to take signings for May because I was going through a lot. But don't think that notary public, being a notary signing agent, was a waste of time. I guarantee you it's probably the best decision you could ever make. Maybe you're not doing it full time right now. Maybe you're not even doing it part time right now. But to know that at least every single week you can make up to $100, $200, $300, and if you're really hustling, you can make up to $1,000, $2,000, $3,000 even part time. It is still such a great source of income. And again, whether SSD dies or dissolves, I should say, I'm still going to be a notary public. And I have learned to let go of the big brand name, like if SignStampDeliver dies, I die. If SignStampDeliver dissolves, I've lost my identity. No, I'm a notary public at heart. And like these company names and all this stuff is great. It's awesome. It's a great tax benefit. But it is not who I am. If SignStampDeliver continues, awesome. I have a lot of work to do, and I need to start really, considering what my next steps are, and I'm doing that now. But if it dissolves, I have definitely different industries that I can get into and that I'm working on, and getting a full-time job isn't the end of the world. So it's not the end of the world for you either. So, I really enjoyed this video. It gave me the time to kind of reflect on these last couple months, and more than anything, this video is for you, but it's also for me, to always look back on, to just get my heart out there, to wear my heart on my sleeve, and to just show you guys that business is hard, business is tough, and there's going to be things that happen, and it's okay to fail. It's also okay to start over. Whatever the case is, wherever you're at right now, you are where you need to be. There's always going to be more work to do, but you have time on your side. So thank you so much for joining this video, for watching it all the way through. If you've made it this far, or if you've clicked on the timestamps to get to here, I'm very appreciative of you. And for the 47 subscribers I have currently, I cannot tell you how much it means to me to have 47 of you even just subscribing. Like that's awesome to me. And I hope that we can build this channel. I think the future of this channel is going to change a little bit in the coming weeks, in the coming months, to change it more into a life with Steve, while still holding on to the SignStamp Steve and the Notary Public kind of feel to it. I want to make it more about my life and my business ventures, and more about me and what I'm currently doing, rather than just focusing on the Notary Public tips, tricks, and whatever my channel description is. So I'm going to be rebranding this a little bit, but I am so thankful for you guys who have tuned in and joined thus far in these last 2 videos I posted. I'm just grateful, and I really hope that we can become a big old family, that I can help you guys in any way that I can. And then you guys continue to follow along with me in my journey as a 24, almost 25-year-old with twins and a wife and a house in California. Like there's just a lot going on. And I'm going to continue to be vulnerable. I'm going to continue to show you guys what I'm doing right, and share with you what I'm doing wrong. Share with you what I'm doing wrong, and also share with you what I'm doing right. There's going to be a lot more wrongs than there is right, but that's okay. There's always more work to do. So thank you so much. Like, subscribe, hit the bell notification to be notified when I post the next video, which should be twice a week now. I'm going to jump back into it, and I hope you guys all have a great day and you're able to take something away from this video.